on October the 23rd or the 25th here in Glendale, Arizona at the Glendale Civic Center for the most magical market on the land, the Witch Crafted Market. You can find me and all of my spiritual and medicinal tools on the 25th. So make sure that you guys go over to Witch Crafted here on Instagram and grab your tickets. They're only $5, and that $5 is going to give you a host of the most magical beings that you may be able to find here in Arizona. Okay? Hello. I don't know if I can see it. I see a baby. Is somebody pregnant? Come on. That looks like a flower. But that looks like a baby. Peace, family. My name is Rumunera, and I am the owner and conjurer here at ConjureWorks. Welcome back to my sanctuary. Welcome to day 6 of Hoodoo Heritage Month. I hope that you guys are having an incredible Hoodoo Heritage Month so far. I hope that you have been enjoying our content over here at ConjureWorks as we take you along on my personal journey of how I'm spending my time for Hoodoo Heritage Month this year, and reconciling and reconnecting with my own roots, reconnecting with family that I've never met at almost 40 something years old, being a child of an adoptee and a child of and a product of the crack ever. I am spending this Hoodoo Heritage Month reconnecting and reconciling and learning the truths, uncovering hidden lies, and all of that good stuff this year during Hoodoo Heritage Month. And so I hope that you guys have been enjoying our content so far this year. And if nothing else, I truly hope that we over here at ConjureWorks have been, I don't know why I always say we, guys, like it's not only me, it's only me. So I hope that you have been enjoying the content, but more than that, I truly hope that you are being inspired enough to go back into your own roots and to begin digging around and judging up all the family tea and digging through the family gossip, but not just to take away the tea, but more so, you're dredging it up in order for you to self-correct, okay? In order for you to be able to identify your own triggers, okay? To be able to identify your own pathological and psychological patterns that have been harmsome in your own lives, okay? Reconnecting and getting back in line with our lineage is important, okay? It's important to everything that we do, and it is at the root of everything that we do. And especially if you are a child of adoption like me, I truly encourage you to stay on the path of self-identity, to continue to search for the things and the places and the people that you find your identity in. Okay, and don't be afraid to go back and to dig in your own roots and to find out the own truths about your lineage. Okay, don't be afraid to uncover every aspect of your identity, and that includes every aspect of every identity that walks with you on your own ancestral journey. You know, we can't only focus on the beautiful and the wonderful things of our lineage, and you know, the good foundations that were laid as it relates to our bloodlines, but we also have to make peace with, face, and deal, you know, with the not so beautiful aspects of our own bloodlines and our own lineages, in order to elevate, in a sense, our bloodlines. You know, our ancestors, they can do any and everything that they can imagine, but we can also assist them here in the physical, in our own works, by dealing with and facing and uncovering the things that they may have been too afraid or may not have had the tools and the language in order to be able to deal. And for some of us, that journey and that task has been passed down to us. And so maybe you find yourself as the chosen one, in a sense, to do the labor and to do the recalibrating of your own bloodline. And I hope that watching me do my work, that it inspires you to pick up your own cross, as they say in the Bible. Pick up your own cross, okay, and walk with me. Let's get into today's episode, shall we? Okay, guys, we're back. So on today's episode of Hoodoo Heritage Month, day 6, we are going to get into coffee readings. Okay, we have our coffee readings and we have our tea readings. I love me some tea. It's divine, but I have never gotten into or really connected with the tea divinations. If you guys hear sounds around me, I'm outside, honey, and so anything is possible. Okay, so tea readings have never been something that I was most drawn to, and most recently, since reinitiating my altar, my ancestral altar, and since coming back into relationship and learning about the new ancestors that I didn't know about before, and serving them coffee, that has happened to be the medium by which we have been communicating. And so on today's episode of our Hoodoo Heritage Month, I want to get into some coffee readings. I have my notes here because a girl is winded. She loves to talk. It's a gift. And so in order to keep myself on track, I have my notes here, and we're going to speed through this as quickly as possible. Shall we? African diviners, you know, they say it's the motherland. They say that that's where we derived from. Some of us will say that America is the indigenous so-called black people of America. This is our motherland. And so if we trace our roots back a little bit from this specific divination tool, it'll take us back to Africa, okay? And so from the roots of Africa, they were already divining with their roots and their bones and their ashes and the blood, using the earth, okay, the rocks, whatever tools that the earth provided for them. They were already using those mediums for divination, right? And then when they had access to the coffee and to the fresh coffee grounds and the beans and the growing them, it naturally became a tool of divination from them. And so when our people started to migrate, unfortunately, forcefully, from those lands over there, that was a tool of divination and a tool of food source that they brought with them here to America, right? And then from here in the Americas, we began working with coffee, and it became something that we used as far as divination because it was something that was easily accessible to us, you know, that we always had on hand. And so oftentimes what you'll see when you go back and you really start to study our spiritual systems, and to look at the ways in which our foremothers of our past and our forefathers of our past used, and the tools that they used, the mediums that they used to divine with. It was often things that we found in our kitchens. And one of those means, and one of those tools that we found often readily available to us was coffee and coffee grounds. And so we will often find those things used in the plantation houses, okay? And then later it became a staple that we used here in America in any of our spirit kitchen work that we did, okay? The women who mainly held positions as the cooks and your housekeepers, okay, your nannies, these were oftentimes the women who would be operating in these forms of divination, mainly because they were the ones that always had access to the mediums, like coffee grounds, right, or like tea leaves, or sugar, right, or your salt or your cinnamons. They often had access to these things. So the beings that you often would find that was using this form of divination were your nannies, your housekeepers, okay, and your cooks. Tobacco, or like tobacco, coffee was held in the same regard. It was held at the same esteem. And just the same way that we look at tobacco as a plant spirit, we also look at coffee, the coffee bean or the coffee ground, as embodying its own source of spirit. So by the 1900s, coffee readings became a known practice in many southern and northern black communities, okay? Among the women, you'd hear it called or referred to as cup readings, reading the grounds, or asking the pot, okay? I think those are I love the names, okay? Coffee readings lived and was just as important and carried the same amount of weight during this time as Bible divination, and as well as candle gazing, okay? You could find these types of readings oftentimes at your juke joints, okay? You will find your women readers there giving their readings, their tea readings and their coffee readings in between partying, okay, and throwing back that liquor, okay? And you could also find these types of readings in your beauty parlors and in your boarding houses, as well as with the kitchen mothers in them kitchens at the church houses, okay? In hoodoo cosmology, okay, reading coffee is the way that we wake up the spirits in our culture. It's the way that we get them talking. It's the way that we keep them energized. It's the way that we keep them lifted. Okay, it's the way that we keep them awake and aware. And it's also just the way that we sit down and we share communion with them too. Okay, with each line, with each swirl, and with each dip that comes through when we are sitting in communion with our ancestors consuming their coffee. And then when the coffee is done, some people will either flip the coffee and allow some of the grounds to still remain in the cup, and so that they can read those grounds when they flip the coffee. And then for some people, they eliminate the coffee grounds altogether and just read the markings that are left behind once the coffee has been completely consumed, okay? Also, for some people, they feel that you should drink or consume this coffee or the drink in a certain amount of time, and that works for them in order to make the accurate or the reading more accurate. But for me, when I am sitting down and I'm doing my coffee readings, I honestly like to take my time and treat it like I'm sitting down having coffee with a friend, or having coffee with my grandmother. It's not something that I feel like needs to be rushed. I actually think that when you take your time and you're not rushing the process, it gives you time to not necessarily always be in verbal communication, but it gives you time to just compute in your head, to to process in your head. Maybe there's going to be things that come up as you're sitting there communicating with. There's going to be impressions that your ancestors may give you, right? There may be a card that you're told to pull, right? And so in taking your time and just really savoring and enjoying that moment, I think it makes for a better divinatory process, because by the time you're done with that cup of coffee, there's a whole story that is presented before you. And a little later in the video, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean when I say that, okay? A brew ritual that you can try at home in order for you to walk away with your own testimony for how this conjure practice works. I'm going to challenge you to sit down and have a cup of brew with your ancestors. And how do you do this? You simply finish your cup until the end, and when you are ready, flip your cup and let the story spill before you. And I am curious to know what messages are going to come through for you. And if you feel so inspired, feel free to drop your comments down in the comment section, and let's get to exchanging the different messages that our ancestors is allowing us to walk away with, okay? And then the last portion that I want to give you guys about this divinatory brew is, I already went over with you guys the art of flipping the cup and watching the patterns dry, paying attention to the conversation that is happening before you in your cup, the things that you can pay attention to as you are reading your cup for divinatory purposes. You want to pay attention to the movement. You can pay attention to the movement of the flow of the coffee in your cup, okay? You can pay attention to how the coffee settles in your cup, so pay attention to the movement. You can pay attention to the colors that may present before you. I know in some of my ancestral cups on my altar, there has been some rainbow patterns that have presented itself. I'm not quite sure where they came from, but pay attention to the colors that may present in that cup of coffee as well. You can pay attention to the patterns, the scents that may present themselves, as well as the directions of the patterns and how they settle. We're talking about up and down, so above and below. Okay, we're talking about the north, east, the south, and the west. You want to pay attention to all those simple things that to you may not present to be like much, but in the grander scheme of things is going to help you to be able to interpret the story that's playing before you a lot better. Does that make sense? Some of the things and the ways and the rhymes and the reasons in which we used coffee divination, also called, because I didn't give you guys this at the beginning, also referred to as tassography. Tassography is some of the ways and the reasons in which we would use tassography. We would use them for reading and dream interpretation. And so you would drink your coffee. We went over this earlier, and you would pay attention to and interpret the grounds that are left over, okay, from the coffee once you're finished drinking it. And from this particular reading, you would be walking away with maybe visions that spirit is trying to communicate with you, or omens that spirit is trying to give you more wisdom or communication on. Okay? Sorry guys, I thought it stopped. The next use, you would use it for protection work. And this way, you would use coffee grounds and take those coffee grounds and you would sprinkle them in the thresholds of the spaces in your home that you deem most important. Okay, and from there, those coffee grounds are going to be guarding your home against ill will and ill intention. And you can super power these coffee grounds even more by mixing them with other herbs that are in correspondence to the same spiritual properties that coffee grounds carry. Okay, you can also use coffee as an offering. This is one way that I am using it on my altar. This offering is by way of feeding my spirits and my ancestors with coffee and just sitting down and communing with them. The type of coffee that you want to use in this particular instance, I'll dress my coffee up the way that I love it, but when I'm feeding it to my spirits, I am particularly focusing on black coffee, okay? And this offering helps them to push through the exhaustion that they may be experiencing, not only handling their works, but also handling the works that you are petitioning them for. And I hope that you guys are not over petitioning and overworking your ancestors either, okay? And then one of the last ways that you can use coffee grounds or coffee in general is in rituals corresponding or focused on binding or revealing or illuminating truths or something, okay? In this way, coffee acts like blood, okay? It stains, it holds, okay? And it's marking whatever it touches, okay? You can liken it to imprinting. So that is imprinting on whatever it is that you use when you are using coffee in rituals, okay? And then last but not least, I want to give you guys some of the ways or some of the figures or impressions that can present when you are reading your coffee grounds or just your coffee in general when you're serving it to your ancestors. You can receive bubbles. Bubbles is the breath of spirit, is communication. That's how you know that the conversation and the activity that you're having with the spirit is alive, active, and well. You want to pay attention to the longevity. And so this more so deals with the endurance of those bubbles. How long do they sustain? Do they dissipate quickly, or do they have a good endurance power? You want to pay attention to the patterns, okay, that presents, okay? The patterns are going to tell you what is being communicated and how it's being communicated, okay? Some things that could present is snakes. They do, that corresponds with hidden truths. Birds, this speaks to messages, air messages, or spirit messages, travel or spirit communication. Droplets like bubbles can also be interpreted as tears or emotional release. A leaf or a tree speaks about growth or ancestry or ancestral healing. Okay, so a leaf or a tree spoke of growth or ancestry or ancestral healing. You want to pay attention to the bottoms of your cup, okay? This deals with and speaks to what's happening in your subconscious mind, okay? What's happening, what are the things that you may not be thinking about? Maybe you know about them, but you're either pushing them to the back of your subconscious, or maybe you just aren't aware in general. So you want to pay attention to what's happening at the bottom of the cup so that you know what's happening at your spiritual root, okay, and in your subconscious. Then you want to pay attention to the middle, okay? This is where your present circumstances sit, okay? This is where the choices that you have to make sit, okay? The top or the brim is dealing with the near future or what is forming before you, what is being illuminated, okay? What is rising to meet your attention. And then, in my opinion, the last thing that you want to pay attention to is the brim or the lip of the cup. This is your consciousness. This is the seat of the self. Okay, this represents you. Okay, your control, your willpower. Okay, your direct influences, right? Or what is directly influencing you. Okay, and so all these things you want to pay attention to when you are in your cup readings, okay? And don't let it be something that you are overthinking. Don't overthink it. Just allow yourself to be present in the moment, okay? Allow yourself to be still and to sit in silence with the information that is being communicated and that's coming through. And then give your body, your mind, okay, your spirit enough time to process what it is, you know, what the messages are that's coming through. Maybe the understanding of what is being communicated in the messages, it may not be time for you to understand it the same day that the messages come through. You know, maybe that clarity and that understanding will come 2 days, you know, after you receive the message, or maybe it will happen instantaneously. The bottom line is to not to have any expectations of what is to happen. Just have the expectation of spirit, of your ancestors, of your spirit guides showing up and communicating communication with you. You don't have to worry about how, when, where it's going to happen, the mediums that they're going to use to make it happen. Just sit in expectancy, okay? Now, let's jump into, in the next scene, we're going to actually jump into me showing you guys how I personally read my last cup reading. Hi, Mr. Links. How I read my last coffee reading when the last time I sat with my ancestors at my altar. I'm going to show you guys how I read mine, and we're going to get into not only how to read the cup once it's empty, but I'm going to show you guys how to read the cups when they're full and they're acting as offerings to your spirit guides or your ancestors. Okay, let's jump really quickly into this reading, this coffee reading that I had the first day. I think it was the first day of Hoodoo Heritage Month, or was it day 2? I think it was day 2. But I'm finally getting around to recording the video, so let's jump in really quickly. Immediately in this specific reading for myself, after I finished drinking my coffee, I noticed this shape right here to me, which gave or spoke of mountains for me. I also see, I'm trying to get it to focus. I also see specks down here, like around the glass. I see specks. And I'm also taking note of where the image is on the cup, and it to me is above. So it is at the top of the rim. It sits at the top of the rim, and so that tells me that this is something that is coming into my sphere in the future, right? Or something that is manifesting around me currently. This is about something that's happening now into the future, right? Something that's coming. We're sitting at the top of the brim. And what I see, or what I feel like this image looks like to me, is a mountain. It gives very mountain energy to me. That was the first thought that came to me. And again, it's at the top. And so this is something that is manifesting something that's coming in. It's not at the bottom, sitting at the bottom. If you look here in the middle, it's not sitting below the horizon. It's actually above the horizon. So this is something that's coming into view. This is not about things that are buried. This is about things that are on the surface. Maybe something that I can't see, but it's coming into view. But I do like that it's not sunken in, or it's sunken at the bottom, that it sits at the top of the cup. And so for me, with this mountain, to me, mountain speaks of like a threshold or an initiation, okay? It can represent a challenge or a goal that I'm manifesting right now. There's a lot of... So this is something, that could represent a challenge or something that needs to be overcome, something that needs to be climbed, a feat that needs to be sought after. And so this mountain, I also see myself sitting, here in this meditative state. I can't even tell y'all how I recorded this whole thing and didn't even realize that the video cut off. So if I repeat myself, please forgive me, y'all. I had to start the video over. And so I see myself just sitting at the feet of my ancestors in a way. I'm sitting in a meditative state, meditating on this feat ahead of me, this climb, this challenge, this mountain. Seeing the top of the mountain also clearly defined. And visible tells me that maybe there were goals and things that maybe seemed like obstacles before. but now they're visible. Now they're clear. Now I'm aware. Okay, I'm very clear and very sure of my goals. Maybe there was some redirecting that needed to happen in relation to this mountain. Maybe I saw the mountain as an obstacle before. And now, after sitting and meditating and reconnecting and looking at this thing with a new perspective, this obstacle now becomes a goal to accomplish rather than something to sit at the bottom and dwell on and fixate and ruminate on how I'm going to get over this thing. In the words of Maya Angelou, maybe defeat is something that we need to learn how to get through and to get over, not to go around, but to truly get through that thing. That's obviously not the whole quote to its perfect extent, but that's the gist of it, becoming friends with defeat, learning these obstacles, becoming friends with these obstacles so that these obstacles can teach us rather than to look at these obstacles as harmful, or something that is trying to take us out. And so with this mountain, this challenge that was once an obstacle is now a goal and a spiritual ascent that I'm climbing towards, because the mountain is visible and I am now in a state to where I am grounded enough to have changed my perspective on this mountain. And then below, we can see the water. We can see the water, and this speaks to me a threshold or an initiation. And during my time that I've been spending with my ancestors, there is a self-initiation that I have been instructed to do every year for the next 7 years. And so this mountain coming forward would later be validated by the message from my ancestors that came in through our tarot card reading. And so this water represents an initiation. Okay, it represents the subconscious mind as well. And so there are a lot of subconscious things that I am sorting through, or in a sense, wading through. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the waters. And so my waters, the subconscious waters of my emotions and of my subconscious, I've been forced to wade through and to find out the troubles of my own waters. And so even seeing the waters within this reading, to me, represents the ancestral realm. And I've been doing a lot of ancestral work. It also represents the astral realm as well. And seeing the water rising, seeing the mountains rising out of the water, to me is it could be seen as like a calling or something emerging deeply, some spiritual roots are emerging deeply. It can also speak to the emotional work that I may be doing, and the exhausting feat that it's been to climb this mountain, how taxing it's been, how emotionally taxing it's been, how physically taxing it's been, and how spiritually taxing it's been. And so seeing this water, seeing the mountains rise out of the waters, to me speaks to this emotional work that I've been doing. Okay, the dustings of the mounds that's around, the specks that are around the bottom of the mountain, to me speaks to future potential, or it can be stars that's mapping a way, that's mapping a destination. It could also be looked at as seeds, as the many seeds that I've scattered along. And as I sit back right there in that meditative state, just looking at all the seeds that I've planted and all the people that my own journey is helping to water, and people that I'm helping to water and to touch and to reach and to encourage and to inspire. Those specks could also be representative of ancestors, of my ancestors that are with me as I'm doing the work. Maybe they're watching me in my meditative state as I am doing this deep emotional work of delving into my own subconscious. And so it could also be opportunities, right? It's opportunities, the many opportunities that are waiting and scattered around me, and that I'm grounding myself enough to be able to see. Seeing this around the mountain speaks to expansion beyond the mountains, expansion around the mountain. And so this, I can also see the crescent moon at the bottom of the cup. And when I look at my grandmother's Grace cup of coffee earlier, you probably can't see it that much, but I'll show you guys a picture. There was also a crescent moon in her reading as well. And so as you guys do this ritual, take your time. Don't rush it. And also, don't be afraid to find your interpretation, to use your own interpretation, because it will come to you if you just sit and think on it for a moment. Okay, let's keep going. Welcome back, y'all. This brings us to the last portion of our day 6 video for Hoodoo Heritage Month. I'm going to try and make this fast and easy to understand. So here is the coffee offerings that sit on my ancestral altar. Each of them have kind of shifted from their patterns that they were in this morning when I was over here having my offering with them. But for the most part, they kind of really look the same from this morning. But there's 2 that I just want to use as an example to teach you how to read your coffee offerings when they are being used as a token of love and of energy and of offering to your ancestors when they sit on your offerings. And so I'm on your altar. So anytime you see bubbles transforming in your coffee, or you find that there are a lot of bubbles in your coffee after you finish serving them on your altars, bubbles are a really good sign that the work and the altar is active, that the spirits that you are communing with are active and as well as present. Bubbles and a reading, especially on the surface, just tells you that the work is alive, the reading is alive, the spirit activity is alive, the communication is alive. You can liken it to the breath of spirit, okay? The breath of your ancestors, or a bridge between worlds. Okay, so let's go through really quickly some of the things that you may see when you are looking at your coffee. Should you see thick and round and solid bubbles, this tells you that the situation is rising, something is manifesting, or something is being revealed, and it's just now coming to the surface, or it's going to begin coming to the surface, okay? If you find that your bubbles are staying, okay, it has good, steady, focused, staying power, meaning your bubbles are not dissipating. This lets you know that your manifestation or the petition that you are seeking in relation to your ancestors is holding strong, or that spirit is sustaining the conversation or the communication as you sit in your altars and you are working. If you are finding, though, that your bubbles are popping quickly, it lets you know that either the question or the working that you are coming to the altar about, or to your ancestors about, is unstable. The situation is unstable. It's either changeable, finicky energy, or something in relation to the petition or the offering is not anchored correctly or grounded enough, okay? When you see dark pools, almost like this, when the surface is more so reflective, it gives like a mirror effect, almost like you are looking into a scrying mirror or something. Okay, so this is about reflective work. Maybe the answers that you're seeking, your spirit guides and your ancestors are telling you to focus it, okay, to turn inward for the answers, okay? Maybe it's not something that they can help you with, or maybe it's something that they have to take and discuss internally with the rest of your spirit teams before they can answer you, okay? So a dark pool of coffee represents not only the root, but it acts as a mirror, okay? And it could also act act as a protective barrier seen around maybe the works right here with these bubbles right here around the works that you may be inquiring about, okay, or the information that you may be inquiring about. When we see clusters, like very much, and like this one right here in particular, this is my mother's mother, and so my first grandmother. She has a lot of clusters, and this can also be a sign of a shield or protection that may be being formed around you, something acting as a shield. So anytime you see bubbles curling around you or curling in a particular section, in a particular direction, this is often suggesting a shield or a veil of protection is being put around you, or that your ancestors are sending you into a season of spiritual protection or containment, okay? Or maybe the works that you are petitioning them for needs a spiritual barrier of protection, and they aren't contained or grounded enough, okay? And when we see foaming taking place, and our coffees that is being used on our altar as offerings to our ancestors, this is a good sign, so do not panic. This simply lets you know that somebody, whoever it is that you're sitting before, somebody from the other side is near. They're near you. They're very close. They're communicating with you. They're right there in the room, okay? It's almost like they are sitting down in front of you, like they just sat down literally beside you. This is how you know that the energy and the spirit of them is very hot in a sense around you. And then the last thing that I want to touch on really quickly is I want to show you guys an example of how to read your coffee readings even further. And I'm going to use my grandmother Sarah and my grandmother Aurelia. Okay, so let's start with my grandmother Sarah. So when we look at hers, this was the one that I was showing you guys earlier. That's very reflective, very mirror-like. And so this, like I said earlier, suggests shadow work. It suggests, times of reflection, time to sit with your subconscious and to sort through your subconscious. When we think about a scrying mirror has a smooth surface so that there is nothing that can be projected that wasn't meant to be protected. Okay, this is dealing with subconscious work. It's dealing with the dark, deep hidden things. Okay, things that are being illuminated. It can also deal with breaking through confusion or speaking of grief. Okay, when we look at this, we can also see the separation of the light and the dark, and so this is going to speak to her duality and the polarities that she may be delivering and the wisdom that she's telling me. And some people will call this a watching cup. And so this is a mirror. This is showing me my reflection. It's telling me to be still, to not be so quick to move, to be more still, more calculated, make sure that all of my ducks are in a row. In a sense. And so when you see your offering cups looking like this, take a moment to just sit and be still and make sure that you are not rushing something or getting ahead of something, or that there aren't things that are lingering in your subconscious that could be setting up barriers around you. Okay. And then in my grandmother Aurelia's cup, we see a lot more activity happening. And so this can speak to a lot of hot, rising, heavy energy. Bubbles, and the bubbles in here look reflective and sparkly like glitter. And it's a lot of them. And they're super heavy on the surface. And so this could speak to just a lot of activities. It could speak to her having a lot of spirits with her, a lot of energies with her. It could speak to her being very celebratory and happy about all the progress that's being made in relation to my own self-discovery and my own self-identity. But it can also mean movement. Multiple bubbles can oftentimes translate into multiple ancestors that may be present and trying to break through. It can also speak to multiple paths that are presenting, multiple paths that may be converging, multiple opportunities that may be presenting and having a reflective moment moment right here in the center to really sit and ponder through the many choices that may be presented in front of you. This can also speak to the cosmic map that's being presented, okay? So bubbles on the surface, these are kind of corresponding and settling in the right side of the cup, and so this speaks to active blessings, dominance, and favor. And so for me, I think that these coffee readings are right in line with the work that I'm doing in relation to my bloodline. And I truly hope that this message helps you to interpret your readings even better. And if not, I hope that they encourage you to sit down before your ancestors and have a brew or two. And so until next time, y'all, peace. This is me. On October the 23rd or the 25th here in Glendale, Arizona at the Glendale Civic Center for the most magical market on the land, the Witch Crafted Market. You can find me and all of my spiritual and medicinal tools on the 25th. So make sure that you guys go over to Witch Crafted here on Instagram and grab your tickets. They're only $5, and that $5 is going to give you a host of the most magical beings that you may be able to find here in Arizona, okay?